Okay, so I mentioned that I was going to go over some more of the reports with you guys. I think we went over French. We have Linda's. Linda's is pretty lengthy though. That's going to be a long one. So I'll just do Whitson and kind of see where we go.
Boulder Police Department Supplemental Report Case P96 21871. Date December 27, 1996. Homicide investigation JonBenet Ramsey, Robert Whitson. Thursday, December 26, 1996, at about 6:05 a.m., I received a page to call the Watch 3 supervisor, Paul Reichenbach. Sergeant Reichenbach advised me that he had responded to a reported kidnapping involving a 6-year-old girl from 755 15th in Boulder. He was requesting detective assistance. I telephoned detectives Linda Arndt and Fred Patterson and asked them to respond to 755 15th. While driving into Boulder, I telephoned detectives Arndt and Patterson, and they advised me they were almost at 755 15th. Therefore, I responded to the police department to make several telephone calls. Those included the following. Number 1, I notified Commander Eller. Number 2, I called the FBI to request their assistance. Number 3,
Now, if you
I
remember,
requested a staff pay.
if you remember, Eller, I think it was Eller that DA. I need to look this up. I need to figure this out. Why? Apparently there was smoke between DA Hunter and Commander Eller. DA Hunter wanted Commander Eller off of the case. And I do think it was kind of shady the way that he did it. It was kind of messy, and it told me something about DA Hunter that really concerns me, because there's nothing wrong. If you're the DA, if you're the DA and he hired Lou Smith to kind of follow an investigative path that he wanted, I don't think there's anything wrong with, saying, okay, I think we should go this direction with the investigation. And if you're the head man in charge, we got to listen to you. You're the boss. But to leak information to the news to sort of out, Commander Eller, in hopes that it will get back to his boss so that his boss will take him off the case, and potentially leaking information that might hurt his career. And like I said, I haven't followed up on this, but just from what it seems from watching DA Hunter's deposition with Mr. Hoffman and Lynn Wood, man, that just kind of seems shady, man. It doesn't seem to me like a stand-up thing to do. Like, all of you guys have been in the workplace, and we all encounter people that we don't like, but to do some shady stuff like that, man, like it makes me kind of think, like, yo, what are you capable of if you would do something like that? You know what I mean? So that not a huge deal, but it tells me a little something about, because we blame the Boulder PD a lot, and we just focus on one thing. But I think it's important to understand, at least from my perspective, baby, you guys know that this was like, this entire investigation from all points was chaotic. It was trash. There were a lot of feelings involved. You do it my way. If you don't do it my way, you get off the case. That kind of stuff. That's not going to help anything. It's not going to solve anything. You got friends involved. You got, relational ties involved. People are not coming and doing their job the right way, and people are skirting the issue, and,
I notified Commander Eller. Number 2, I called the FBI to request their assistance. Number 3, I requested a staff page. Number 4, I spoke with Jim Smith from our sheriff's department, and he advised me that he would give me some information about kidnapping cases. Number 5, I did a preliminary advisement to PIO Leslie Ahome. And number 6, I responded to the Justice Center and advised Deputy District Attorney Pete Hofstrom. I responded to 755 15th at about 9:15 a.m. Upon my arrival, I met with Detectives Patterson and Arndt. They advised me that John and Patsy Ramsey were the parents of the missing 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey. I was told the Ramseys have a 9-year-old son, Burke, who had left the residence to stay with friends. Supplemental Whitson page.
Okay, so in a previous video, I think with French wasn't clear on the timeline when Burke left the residence. So apparently Burke left the residence very early on. So he wasn't sleeping till 1 p.m. Okay, so sort of rolling back previous statements in the previous video with Officer French's report that we did. I was trying, because French wasn't clear on that. He just said, I got there, I saw him, I saw the kid, leaving. So a solid timeline. Fleet White got there. Okay. I'm trying to figure out who he went with then. And we'll have to clear it up in Linda Arndt's report, because I'm assuming that he went with Fleet White. That's what I'm assuming. But I need to go back and check to see that, like, around 1:15, whenever everybody found, or whenever they found JonBenet, who was there? Like, who was there? Like, was it Fleet and Priscilla? Because I know Fleet was there. So did Fleet drop Burke off at the house? Because was it just Fleet that came over and Priscilla stayed home? Because I'm asking, or did they have a nanny, Fleet White and Priscilla? Because, their kids were JonBenet and Burke's age. Fleet White III is Burke's age, I believe. And Daphne was JonBenet's age, as she was saying in the previous video. So if Priscilla and Fleet woke up and both came over, who was watching the kids? They just left the kids in the house sleep, which is a disturbing thought. But that goes to show that, hey man, we thought this town was safe. I get all that. And it was the 90s. So parents may have been a little bit more prone to doing that. I remember we were able to ride down the street without, ride our bikes down. Man, we were able to go anywhere in the neighborhood without our parents checking up on us. So that could have been the stage, and it was 96. So, they could have been allowed to stay home, but Fleet and Priscilla coming over early in the morning, maybe leaving the kids at home, I'd have to assume. And then at some point in time, 9:15, Fleet and Priscilla said, we're just going to run over there. Not even going to wake the kids. They're not even going to be awake before we get back. So they run over there at 6:55. No, they got there by 6:20. One report said they got there by 6:20. And I got there by 9:15. I was told had left. Okay, so somewhere before 9:15, maybe Fleet and Priscilla said, you know what, I got to get back to the kids. We're taking Burke over there. And maybe Priscilla stayed back with the kids. So Burke had already left the residence at 9:15. So he wasn't sleeping until 1 p.m. Okay.
H2. I was advised that Officer Barry Weiss had already photographed the house and didn't find any signs of an obvious crime scene where there had been a struggle. I was also told there were no signs of forced entry and there were no footprints of possible suspects found outside of the home. Officer Rick French was still present in meeting with friends of the family. Officer Sue Barklow was present in obtaining latent fingerprints. I didn't want to disturb any possible evidence in JonBenet's bedroom, so Patterson, Arndt, and I placed police tape over the door and advised Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey not to enter the bedroom. Detective Patterson advised me that
I want you to listen to something. The cops that you said weren't doing their job, the cops that John And Patsy said, we're not doing their job because we talk about how botched this investigation was. I'm showing you right now, they were trying to do their job to the best of their ability. They showed up and they started doing what they were supposed to be doing. I'm taking pictures. I'm obtaining fingerprints. And look, I'm telling you right now, I don't want to disturb any possible evidence in the room because that's where you told me the kidnapping was. Officer Weiss had already gone around and checked, as cops are supposed to do. He had already gone around and checked for entry and exit points. He had already checked for a struggle. The man said, I didn't see anything. I didn't see any struggle. It ain't there. The house seems fine. So whoever did this, why do I bring this up? Because whoever did this, it points to, as John said in Linda's report, and we will see, it points to an inside job. Somebody was able to get into the crime scene, interact with JonBenet, and as we've said before, fashion the garrote or the toggle rope, as some have suggested, which, very closely aligns with toggle rope. So thanks for that tip. But very toggle rope, garrote. Somebody was able to sit down and fashion that. We have to ask, who would be motivated to do that? Furthermore, if we're going to think of Linda Hoffman Pugh, if we're going to bring the intruder theory back with respect to somebody being on the inside, and we're going to think of Linda Hoffman Pugh, it's hard for it to be Linda, maybe Mervyn. I don't know the guy, but it's her husband. It's hard for me to think that it was Linda because Linda had asked for the money that she needed. She said, I need $2,000. Can you give me $2,000? Patsy was like, yeah, just come get it off the step. Why then, for what reason? What reason then would Linda come in the middle of the night and mess with JonBenet? I still don't understand. We left off of the $2,000 check. Do we have any recollection of whether that check was written or not? I know previously in the crime scene, when we looked at the, I think it was crime scene investigation or crime scene video 2 that we did previously, we saw what looked like a $7,000 check on the way headed down to, I believe, the basement. It's kind of on the furniture, the entertainment center thing right there. We saw the $7,000 check, and we saw what looked like a $4,000 check that was ripped up, but we never saw a $2,000 check or where that was supposed to be placed. So it'd be weird that Linda comes in and Linda Hoffman Pugh comes in, sets down, a note for Patsy to read. Are you saying that the check? Are we supposed to assume that the check was on the spiral staircase? Is that what we're assuming? We need to go back and be clear about that. We need to be clear and thorough about those statements. Are you saying, because what's happening is, and what's diverting a lot of attention is random stories, just like this kidnapping one. Random stories are being thrown out there, like 10 of them at one time. There was a kidnapping. Look at the person at my job. Look at the second person at my job. Look at my old housekeeper that is not here anymore. Look at my current housekeeper. Look at my current housekeeper's husband. Who else can I pinpoint to? Look at my neighbor across the street. Look at the person I went to a party with last night. You know what? Look at my best friends. Okay, which one of these directions have legs? Because when we talk about, the police aren't following up on any tips. You sent them on wild goose chases, left and right. For what? When they came in and said, dang, man, I don't see anything that would suggest to me that somebody broke in this house. And there was not only broke in, I'll give you the window. Oh, but we see evidence of people breaking in because of the window. Okay, I'll give you the window, but there were no signs of struggle. No signs of struggle. JonBenet did not fight with anyone. She didn't struggle with anyone. Wherever she was at, she didn't struggle. Whoever came in had time, as other reports have said, other news articles have said, Whoever did this had time to set up shop and look JonBenet in the face and say, let's fashion this item. You know what? Let's improvise. This doesn't work like I wanted to. Let's go get this additional piece to enhance what we already have. This person had time. Somebody on the inside that you know that helps us tremendously. Somebody on the inside that you know had time to come in and take it easy. Feed your kids. Maybe somebody that Burke knew, I don't know, that, when he said he got back out of bed and came downstairs, it said he didn't hear anything, didn't see anything going on. Okay. Well, apparently, had he come downstairs during this time period, he probably wouldn't have seen anything, because it was like, hey, whoever's doing this is somebody that I'm familiar with. But if that's the case, I know you're not holding back. And this is what I'm saying. If that's the case, if it was somebody that you know, I know you're not holding back information for them. When we looked at Burke's facial expressions and we analyzed John in and out, I know you're not protecting those people. I know you're not. Why do I say that? Because you gave them up to the cops immediately. That's not a sign of protection. You gave them up to the cops immediately, the first day, within minutes of them asking you. You rattled it off. First day. So I know you're not protecting them. So who are you protecting? The cops were doing their job.
Telephone traps and traces have been placed on the Ramseys' telephone, and a tape recorder was attached in case the suspect called. Detective Patterson advised me that a ransom note had been found in the home and that Officer Carl Veach had placed it into evidence. Detective Patterson also advised me that Mr. Ramsey has 330 employees at his business, Access Graphics, and a list of employees was being obtained. Mr. Ramsey had only one possible suspect from his business, blank. He had been terminated and may be upset with Mr. Ramsey. Detective Patterson also advised me that
I think, now I just read this as the report said. I didn't want to make any assumptions, but I think that's Jeff Merrick. And we remember Jeff Merrick had aught against, I think, John, because he thought there was some possibility that John was falsifying sales data at Access Graphics.
the maid, blank, was a possible suspect since she had a key to the house and had recently asked to borrow money from the Ramseys. He advised me that a telephone trap was being placed on her telephone in blank. Blank has a significant other who had a criminal history. I was also advised.
Talking about, I think we're talking about Linda Hoffman and Mervyn. Linda Hoffman Pugh and Mervyn Pugh, her husband, who was like the handyman that came around. And you know how fast people throw you under the bus. My God. You know how fast people wait till times of crisis to see who your friends are. Because my God, Mervyn, look, everything's cool until something happens. If I am John and Patsy Ramsey and I hired Linda, and Linda's been great to us, irregardless of anything. We don't know if Linda had a past. We don't know. But regardless of anything, then, we need some things done around the house. And you say, Linda, do you know anybody? You've been great to us. We trust your judgment. Do you know anybody? And Linda says, well, my husband, he works around. He does pretty good handiwork. He's pretty good at it. Oh, bring him over. And it's like, well, they probably looked him up and said, well, hey, you seem great. And, we've seen, that you have a criminal past, but you seem to be doing well. And if Linda loves you, we love you. But all of a sudden, and it's not a problem. This man has been, if that's the case, and he's been a regular there, this man has been around their kids for a year, 2 years, something like that. This man has been around their kids with no issue, no problem. All of a sudden, one day, out of the blue, They ask for money and they get it. The request is granted, and then they snap. And then all of a sudden, this man's criminal history is thrown in his face. What? The man is like, whoa, hold on. I haven't done anything. I'm trying to turn my life around. How old is this guy at this point? You see what I'm saying? Like, these guys, how old are they at this point? You know, to be like, man, because sometimes when you're younger, you do stuff and then you get older and you're like, man, I don't know what I was doing. I was tripping. You know, I don't know what I was thinking out there being a knucklehead. And then you change your life, you grow up. And I believe that's where these guys were. And so for this man to get here, something like this happens, you know, and for this to be thrown in his face, it's disrespectful, because just in the same way that John and Patsy don't want anybody judging them, like I said before, this is the same way that they are judging other people. Like, this is vicious. Like, this is pure savagery, that you are just throwing people to the wolves, like anybody. Right off the rip. Like, yo, if we ever get in trouble and I'm your best friend and the first person that you mention to the cops is me, were we ever best friends? That is crazy.
That arrangements had been made with the Pearl Street Bank for $118,000 in ransom money to be available if needed. Detective Patterson also stated that Officer Weiss had taken photos of JonBenet and was making copies to give to officers. I briefly spoke with John Ramsey. I asked Mr. Ramsey if he was sure the doors were locked when he got up. Mr. Ramsey said he was sure the doors were locked when he got up and when he went to bed the night before. I asked Mr. Ramsey for a sample of his and his wife's handwriting, just as a standard procedure. Mr. Ramsey gave 2 notepads to Detective Patterson, who in turn gave them to me. I was advised one of the pads was for Mr. Ramsey and the other was a sample of Mrs. Ramsey's writing. I wrote their respective names on the notebooks at the top, but didn't look at the samples or pay any attention to them at that time, since I wanted to leave the house as soon as possible for a meeting with the FBI at the police department. I provided a brief summary of what had been done at the time to Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, and I advised them we would be meeting with the FBI for their advice before deciding how to proceed. Whitson, supplemental page 3. Detective Patterson and I checked the area near the Ramseys' home for any suspicious-looking people or vehicles and did not see anyone unusual. I responded to the police department and met with several detectives and representatives from the FBI. During this meeting, Detective Jeff Kithcart came into the room and I handed him the 2 notepads, which I was given as samples of Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey's handwriting. These items were later placed into evidence as items number 1 raw and number 2 raw. A few minutes later, Detective Kithcart returned to the room to show me something in the notepad which had been identified as Mrs. Ramsey's handwriting sample. There were 2 or 3 pages of writing. Then there was a page which was written in a felt marker that stated Mr. and Mrs. R, which matched the same type of writing in the ransom note. It was obvious that some pages prior to this page had been torn from the notepad. I didn't touch the page this was written on. At that time,
Now hold on. Now hold on. John was mad at Linda Arndt. John was mad at Linda, but you see how, come on now, see how thorough they're being. Like, I'm looking at, like, they're noticing things. I noticed this. I came, we didn't, you know, I talked with my guys. They say we don't see any struggle. You know, all the doors are locked. And then I talk to the victims. They confirm, yeah, when I went to sleep, it was locked. When I woke up, it was locked. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know what else to believe. What else can I do? I'm just going off of what you told me. And then we come here and they're being thorough because, you know, how did they find the pad in the first place that this was written on, right? You had to have been being thorough to find that pad. You had to have been like going through the little nooks and the crannies to find the pad in the house that lets us know that they were being thorough enough to, okay, what is this? What is that? So that tells me that somewhere along the line, this investigation was going smoothly. And if you listen to Officer French's language and you listen to the language in this report, this tells you that, okay, they hadn't dealt with this a lot, or they don't deal with this a lot. But it's not like they had never dealt with murder cases, but it's like we just don't do it a lot. But we're going smoothly and we're doing everything that cops should be doing. We're following, we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's. Somewhere along the line, then, this tells me that this investigation is going to be derailed by something out of their control that completely throws off police work. They found, being thorough, they found a page that looked like a practice ransom note. So we clearly see, and so my intuition is going to kick in and say, well, dang, looks like somebody was using this. This is the pad. It looks like it was written with this marker. And they're going to, as Detective Arndt said, going to make a mental note. I'm going to make a note about that. I'm going to write in my report. This is going to be helpful for people like me, for people like you, coming back later and saying, okay, well, what happened that day? What was observed? What are the cops saying? I know because we know what John, Patsy are saying. They're all over the news. They're in interviews. We know what you guys are saying. What are the cops saying they saw? In raw form, what are the cops saying they saw? And we're saying, hey man, I saw something that was suspicious. And we were forced to look inside of the house. Everything that we look at tells us that we're forced to look inside of the house because there's no externalities that we're looking at. And this is the way cops work when you're a detective. I don't follow up on something unless there's a reason for me to do that. I mean, that's why they call it a lead or a tip. I'm not, well, why didn't you check why didn't you check the man down at the grocery store? Why didn't you check the guy who was down at the grocery store who just graduated high school? What reason would there be for me to go over there? I mean, if that's the case, we should check everybody in the city. I'm just following up on tips and my intuition. Research shows that we do that, and you have to follow up on your gut feeling. You can't just go off the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, which is the logical side. You have to use the amygdala, right? You have to, because that amygdala is going to be that knee-jerk reaction. It's going to be your gut and your emotional feeling, right? And that prefrontal cortex comes later when you have time to slow the situation down. But immediately, what am I feeling in this moment is coming from my amygdala. System 1 and System 2 processing. So I'm going with the processing that says, okay, I'm feeling something is not right. I'm going to go with that because that's going to give me intuition. I'm listening to what you're saying to me, and I'm trying to factor everything in. I'm trying to, I think Lisa Feldman Barrett, theory of constructed emotion. I'm trying to construct what's going on here. I'm trying to put it together, right? So then I can follow a path of evidence to try to figure out where's the first place I should look. Well, I can't look outside because, there's nothing out here to lead me out here. So I got to stay inside first to see if there's anything that leads me outside. That's the way it works, John.
I question if Patsy Ramsey was a possible suspect. I asked myself, why would a stranger take the time to stay in the Ramseys' house and write a ransom note? At that time, the focus of the investigation changed to include a possible family member as well as someone from outside the family. And if a family member was a suspect, we needed to obtain a search warrant before we collected additional evidence from the house. I can't remember.
This is clearly stating to you at that time, I questioned when I looked and I said, yo, this notepad is questionable. At that time, I questioned if Patsy was a possible suspect. I asked myself, this is on the grounds day one as they are working through the house. John, you want to know why they didn't let off of you, why they clipped on and didn't quit? I asked myself as a trained officer, Why would a stranger take the time to stay in the house and write a ransom note? And then this is the motivational statement right here. This is motivational language, right? The reason and the motivation for the following decision at that time, after I had questioned who was a possible suspect, and after I had asked myself, I gave you the precursors, right? I gave you the logical steps to my decision. I questioned if it was Patsy. I looked at the note, questioned if it was Patsy, asked myself, is this the question? And then after going through that line of logic, at that time, only then after that, didn't come out of nowhere, the focus of the investigation changed to include a possible family member. That's when I did that. It didn't just come out of nowhere. It came from it's like, did you guys even read these police reports to understand why they were targeting you guys? And this entire time you're going on television. This is uneducated. This is an uneducated approach that they were taking, that John and Patsy were taking. It's uneducated and it's baseless. You're jumping on television saying the cops shouldn't be looking at me and this, that, and the third, but why? They don't want to do anything else because they questioned. I questioned it, Patsy, I questioned it if you were a possible suspect. That's why. I asked myself, would a stranger take time to stay in the house? That's what I did. And then I said, seems like something the family would do. That's when. And because you guys stonewalled me, because let's be honest, you guys acted like you did everything that, like Larry King was saying, you guys acted like you did everything that the cops wanted. You did not. Oh, I gave you my hair. I gave you everything. Okay, but we're still investigating. We have more questions. It's not a one-time thing. We have more questions. It's like Larry King was saying, like, why wouldn't you? I would be there day after day to be like, yo, whatever you need. If I'm going to call up and be like, what have you found? What's going on? I'm there every day. We're going to hold JonBenet to bury, but I'm here every day. I'm at your service, whatever you guys need. The statement from Mike Bynum was premature in saying, will you allow me to? Mike, why did you say that? Because Mike, you're here. I get it. Mike says, John, will you allow me to do some things that I think are necessary here? And John, you didn't ask what those were? Come on. Stop playing games with me. You know he's a lawyer. And the fact that there can be nonverbal communication between John and Mike without even, you're in the middle. And this is what I'm saying. When people are like, oh my God, Patsy was just out of it. And so was John. John was just distraught. Not so distraught that Mike couldn't look. Somebody's asking you a question from the detective team and you're like, oh, I don't know anything. I don't know what's going on. But he did it. I don't know anything, but I'm still out of it. She did it. Oh, and go look at him too. He has a criminal history. Matter of fact, go look at this guy too. He doesn't seem like he's up to any good. We fired him. Matter of fact, I know the number to my HR team right now. We're going to call. Hey, what's the information on so-and-so? We need his address for this, that, and the third. Oh, you got the presence of mind to do that. When I ask you any other important question, I don't know. I didn't know if there was a window that was broken, or I didn't know if my daughter was over here, and I don't know if the detective told me not to touch anything, and I don't even remember, why the detective was looking at me. Bruh. If Mike Bynum can look at you and say, will you allow me to do some things here that I think are necessary? And you don't even, to what you told us, you don't even ask him to say, like what? What do you think is going to happen? What's up, Mike? Tell me how, you're a lawyer. Tell me how these things go. What was Mike Bynum there seeing and doing for him to look around and be like, uh-oh, something's not right here? Because the cops always look at the parents. That's standard procedure, always. What I would have expected Mike to say or do was, hey, John, let me pull you aside real quick. What they're going to do is they're going to, call you down to the police station, you and Patsy, and they're just going to ask you some questions. Now, I understand. This is on me. I'm going to do this pro bono. I'm just going to stay in here with you guys, right? Stand here with you guys, and I'm going to make sure that they don't ask you anything crazy or you don't have to answer anything that you're not comfortable with. I'll go with you. But instead of saying that, he said, let me take care of some things. Don't ask, don't tell. Let me take care of some things on your behalf. What are you going to take care of, Mike? What are you going to take care of? And John, what is he going to take care of to your understanding? What, if you didn't do anything, what would he be going to take care of? Unless, as we know, John has the ability to communicate with his eyes, as he did with Detective Arndt. And so if I'm communicating with my eyes with Detective Arndt, then I'm also communicating with my eyes and my body language and my energy with Mike Bynum. You know how it is. You know how it is to communicate with somebody non-verbally and just look over and be like, yeah, let's do it. I have to believe that these nonverbal communications were all over the place. I want to, and this makes me want to know if I could talk to Linda. Linda, you said that 10 a.m. came and went and nobody came out of the room. I would like to know what that felt like. What did that feel like in the house? I know there's tension, yeah, but what kind of tension? Like a tension like somebody's hiding something behind my back tension? You know when you're in a house and maybe, you're in a house with people and maybe you're in the house with a friend or something like that, and all of a sudden it gets quiet. And you're like, man, some feels off. Like there's like some feels different. And you go in the other room and somebody's like kind of whispering on the phone or something like that. And it's like, why are you whispering on the phone? This is your house. Why are you whispering? Oh no, I'm not, I'm not, I was just, I'm not doing anything. I was just, talking to so-and-so, man, we were catching up. Yeah, but why are you whispering? You know what I mean? That's weird, don't you think? I wonder if that energy was present in the house during that time when, because we know Linda was watching the clock. 10 o'clock comes and goes and it gets real quiet and nobody's saying anything. And all you hear is this silent, lone whimper from Patsy. Oh my God, I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. Oh my God, she's gone. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. Yeah, Patsy. But it's like this very weird energy. Like, why is it silent? Why is there no movement here? What's going on? Like, it's like y'all are purposefully, intentionally staying away from me and staying in the other room. And while you guys are in the other room, you guys are looking at each other. And y'all are like, oh yeah. And then, maybe if it's Susan Stein, and Priscilla, they're kind of, Patsy's head is in their arms and they're like, hey girl, I don't know what's going on. And they're kind of looking at each other. I wonder, I would like to talk to Linda and be like, did that exist in the house? Because if that's the case, then something's being hidden. We can tell that there are nonverbal cues of something being hidden. That's not the word I want. I want something more definitive. Restrained. Something is being restrained. Dare I say retained, in a way. I'm retaining, in a sense, the truth. I'm holding that truth back. This truth can't go anywhere, is what I'm trying to say. Something to that effect. Trying to communicate the force of somebody literally holding truth hostage and not even being able to hide it appropriately or accurately. There are some people that can hide something and say, and you can't even tell that they're hiding something. It's like, did you, hit this person? No. Why would I do that? And you believe them. But then there are some ways that people act by like nature if they're not used to acting in a certain way, right? There are certain emotions that come out by knee-jerk response, right? That just come out just because this is morally wrong to me. And I am repulsed by it. But if I've had time to suppress those over time of, if you look at serial unalivers, they've had time to suppress those feelings. So it's easier for them to snap into a lie. It's easier for them to look dead in the camera and say, had nothing to do with it. I wasn't even there. Check my alibi. Had nothing to do with it. Even when you catch them, had nothing to do with it. I wonder, what was that communication here? Because that would tell us a lot.
The exact time, but shortly after the evidence of the notepad was discovered, everyone in the meeting was advised that the deceased body of JonBenet had been found. I left the meeting and responded to 7:55:15. When I entered,
and so this is what Linda was saying. Can't remember exact time, but shortly after the evidence of the notepad was discovered, everyone in the meeting was advised. So we needed to obtain a search warrant. So they need to go do that. And then everyone was advised in the meeting. This was the meeting that everybody was in when Linda Arndt was calling left and right. I need you guys here. She was paging people. I need y'all to come back me up, please. Linda, we can't come right now. They weren't even answering the phone. They weren't even answering pages. And so she was calling out to different places. They were like, hey, Linda, this is a different police department. You need to call into Boulder. We can't help you. We can't call these people. You did call the wrong place. She was calling out like, yo, I need y'all to get back here now. That's why she started gripping the holster like that. Because she was like, hey, yo, some ain't right. Y'all left me with the wrong people, man.
I observed Patsy Ramsey on the living room floor near the front door, holding JonBenet. Patsy was crying and very upset. I don't know his name, but a person who was identified as a minister tried to comfort Patsy. I requested that Patsy and everyone else move into a different room. I did not attempt to examine JonBenet's body or any other evidence, and I did not go into the wine cellar or downstairs, where she was supposedly found by Mr. Ramsey. When Sergeant Mason arrived, Detective Palmer and I returned to the police department. I placed the 2 notepads into evidence, and Detective Palmer checked them out, as well as the original ransom note, so he could take them to the CBI for processing. I wrote the lab requests and the letter to the CBI. On Thursday, December 26, 1996, I conducted a neighborhood canvass along with Detective Pat Whitson and Barry Hartkop. I spoke with the neighbors on 14th Street, between Cascade and Baseline, on the east side of the street. These houses would be across the alley from the Ramseys' home. Number 1, 792 14th, not home. Whitson, supplemental, page 4, end.
So we see, and I just want to kind of go back here just to make sure they're canvassing the neighborhood. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. I come in and I see Patsy on the ground. They messing with the body. I said, and this is when we asked John and Patsy, the cops didn't have, and Larry King was like, the cops didn't have no problem with y'all touching the body and doing stuff like that. And John was like, no. Cops coming and saying, look, we got to get y'all in a different room. Like, we got to get y'all out of here. So they told you get away. And this is another officer coming in and saying, can we get y'all in another room? That's the video. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think on this. Let me know what you think. And until next time, appreciate you watching and take it easy.